Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Motivating Dan. Today we're going to be talking about the Shock Zapper. Strikes enemies underneath with the bolts of lightning. Kill 100 enemies to unlock the unique upgrades. The level upgrades is to increase the charges because it is a charged trap. And the unique upgrades is to stun enemies hit, or the kills that it does trigger explosion, dealing damaging enemies. The Shock Zapper was in previous games. I did play Orcs Must Die 1 and 2, and in those games, and maybe even Orcs Must Die Unchained, it was a very long-range trap, really good at taking out flyers. I don't remember if it chained its attack. I want to say in one of the games it did, but yeah. So in this game, it has a very short range, so it's really only useful on small ceilings. Yeah, on the short ceilings is really where it's good. There are spots where flyers will fly up towards the ceiling, or they'll come out of like an upper area of the ceiling, where you could theoretically use these. There are flyers that are immune to lightning, so depending on the map, you may not want to use it. But yeah, you know, they're there. You know, you can use it on something like aqueducts in the middle, or abandoned passage probably will work there as well. They do fly relatively high, close to the ceiling, so if you wanted to use that for them, you can, and it'll insta-kill any of them. But yeah, as far as unique upgrades go, I typically run stuns enemies on hit. I did recently a run where I was trying to use very minimal things, and I ended up using the Shock Zapper only for one of the maps, and there was a huge difference between stuns enemies and kill trigger explosions. In stunning, it basically soloed the whole map. Like, I didn't need to do anything other than just load Shock Zappers everywhere. Because it would stun an enemy in place, and then it would keep discharging on that one enemy until they died, and then it would just start with the next enemy. Now, it does only attack one thing at a time, but it does have a little bit of uniqueness to it that you might not see with most other ceiling traps. And we'll take a look at that here in a bit. But first of all, we got to go jump into the game files. All right, here in the game files, we have the Shock Zapper. It is 70 damage, which is quite a bit. 70 damage for each attack, one attack per enemy. And then we have this explosion radius and explosion damage of 14, explosion radius of 300. That's 2 grid squares. So yeah, the explosion radius is not bad. You know, anything within a tile is going to be affected by the entire explosion, which could, you know, increase your combo points, of course, because it already does the lightning damage. It already puts a zapped and the electrified debuff on them, which is, you know, the zap could be an additional combo point depending on how it triggers. But the electrified plus the damage is another 2, plus this explosion damage could be another 1. So it could be a ×4 combo for this trap, theoretically. I mean, it's not very likely to happen. It's more likely to have a 3 if it even kills the thing. So that may not happen either. So it might. You're definitely looking at a solid 2, possibly a 3, and unlikely a 4, basically, for a combo. But it's there. There's a potential. All right, trap rotos. Here we have the cooldown of 14, charges of 3, coin value of 800. You have to spend 7 skulls to unlock it. And then we have this thing called charge cooldown. Now, the other trap that has this is brimstone. So basically, if you don't use up all of the charges, then, you know, within 2 seconds of each other, then it will start coming off of cooldown per charge. So you can expend the entire trap, 3 charges, and wait 14 seconds to have another 3 charges. But if you only use 2 charges, then in 2 more seconds after the second charge, before the third, if 2 second time elapsed, then you'll have another charge come in, and then 2 more seconds, another charge come in. So it's actually best to keep it charged to some degree. However you do that, I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that. But if you do, each charge comes back in 2 seconds instead of the entire trap going on cooldown and coming back in 14. It'll save you a lot of time, give you a lot of extra charges from the trap. But of course, you want to be able to use the charges, but not overuse them. So there's a little bit of a balancing act. Same thing with the brimstone. That's also a charge trap, and it works in the same way. Those charges will come back if they're not all used. So that's pretty unique, right? That's pretty cool with it. That being said, let's look at the upgrades, because we are going to have increased charges here. So the first one is to increase it and, you know, modify an additional 1, modify an additional 1, modifying additional one. So you're going to go up to 6 charges, which means it's a total of 12 seconds. Well, not really. It's actually 10 seconds because you're going to go down to the last charge, and then 10 seconds later, you're going to be full charged again versus going on cooldown and waiting 14. But it's not that much of a save whenever you have all the level upgrades. It is definitely a save when you don't have all the level upgrades. The first unique upgrade is to have a stun. It's going to use the crossbow stun. The crossbow stun is 3 seconds. The second one is to trigger explosion damaging enemies, and that is going to explode on kill and use that as true. And that is this right here. So what's unique about that is there's actually a status effect called Electrified in the last 5 seconds. When an enemy dies while they're electrified, they actually do a very small amount of damage. We haven't found this in the game files yet, but there's a very small amount of damage that's done to enemies immediately around them. An interesting note about that is that if an enemy is electrified, they have to be electrified first before they die. So it can't be killed by this thing. It has to be electrified first and then be killed by this thing. Even if the shock zapper applies its own electrification, I should say. Even if it applies its own, it still would do that area effect damage for it. And then if it kills and has the other upgrade, theoretically, it would do both the explosion damage from the upgrade plus the explosion damage from electrified. And like I said, could add additional combos, but the chances of all that kind of lining up, relatively unlikely. But that's just something to know about things that are electrified, is that they do have that debuff. So, yes. All right. I think that's everything to cover. Let's jump into the game and show you one quick trick on a way that you can use this trap. All right, in this video here, we've done Master's Courtyard on Endless. This will be its own video later on, so you can always reference it if you want to. But you can see here that above these barricades, we have the shock zapper, so directly above the barricades, because we have the double lasers running through the lane. You'll actually notice here, as I zoom around the camera a little bit, you'll actually notice that these are some of them are zapping the enemies. You saw right there, there was one, there's another one. Some of these are zapping the enemies like that. It seems to be like they have to really push up against the barricades, or they have to be large enough and have a large enough hitbox to kind of like be next to the barricades. It kind of filters the big guys from the small guys, but the small guys can get close enough to the barricades for them to trigger. So uniquely, these ceiling traps, although it shows that their area is just the one, tile, they end up shooting and triggering just barely into the tile next to them. So that's also something to note. It is almost immediate for these to trigger off, so they can be decent against the runners. And if you have enemies flying in the air, with a flip trap or something, they'd be pretty decent against that as well. Okay, so for the shock zapper, let me know what you think about it. Let me know if you use it. If you don't use it, why not? If you like it, if you don't like it, let me know which unique upgrade you use. If you use a kills trigger explosion damaging enemies and you found that to be more useful than the stun, please let me know in more detail, like how you use it and methods of using it and stuff like that. That being said, guys, as always, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I do stream on Twitch. You can check it out, twitch.tv/MotivateDan. And there we'll be playing Orcs Must Die 3 on Saturdays as of right now, so feel free to check it out. And I will catch you on the flip side. All right, deuces.